This bridge over the lower Rhine was never meant to be a battlefield. It was just steel and stone, stretched across calm water on everyday structure built for commuters, bicycles, merchants, and children on their way to school. A clean, quiet line connecting to banks, but in September 1944, that bridge became the center of a gamble so bold that, if it worked, the war in Europe might end months early, and on the northern end of it stood one man cut off, outnumbered, running low on ammunition, holding a position every military map would insist was impossible. His name was John Frost. He wasn't a myth carved by propaganda, or a symbol built after the fact. He was a British paratrooper commander with a calm voice, a wounded leg, and a force that kept shrinking hour by hour, and yet, it never broke. This is the story of the man who held Arnhem Bridge against an entire Panzer Corps and what it costs to stand still when everything around you is falling apart. By the autumn of 1944, the war in Europe seemed to be closing. France had been liberated. The Allies were pushing east. Germany was retreating, but a retreat is not a defeat. The German army still controlled rivers, bridges, and choke points that could stall an entire army for months. So the Allies conceived of something truly audacious: Operation Market Garden. It was a massive airborne and land offensive designed to leapfrog the German lines. The plan was to seize a chain of bridges in the Netherlands, opening a straight, 60-mile highway directly into Germany's industrial heartland. Airborne troops would drop deep behind enemy lines. At the same time, armored divisions would race north to link up with them. If it worked, the Allies could cross the Rhine River before winter, potentially ending the war by Christmas. But if it failed, thousands of men would be stranded, surrounded, and utterly alone. Arnhem was the final bridge. A bridge too far, some would later call it. It was the most important one, the one that crossed the last great natural barrier, and its capture fell to the British 1st Airborne Division. Inside that division was the 2nd Parachute Battalion, led by Lieutenant Colonel John Frost. Frost didn't look like the stereotype of a war hero. He was 41 years old, .com/measured, and deeply respectful of his men. He was a professional soldier who avoided drama, a commander who spoke quietly, listened closely, and never pretended war was anything other than brutal, cold arithmetic. Men trusted him because he didn't sell them illusions. He sold them reality and the confidence to operate inside that reality. He had already fought in North Africa and had seen chaos up close. He had learned that in war, the difference between collapse and survival often comes down to one simple thing: a single officer refusing to panic. On September 17, 1944, the sky over the Netherlands filled with Allied aircraft. Thousands of paratroopers drifted down like white seeds falling from the clouds. Gliders slammed into fields, breaking apart, kicking up dirt and splintered wood. For a moment, it must have looked peaceful, that surreal, silent beauty that sometimes comes right before violence. But the moment boots hit the ground, that peace evaporated. Frost gathered his men. The drop zone was 8 miles from Arnhem, chosen for its safety from anti-aircraft fire, not for strategic advantage. It was a decision that would cost the operation precious time. Frost studied his map. He didn't like the distance, but he didn't waste a single breath complaining. He just said what mattered: move quickly, or we lose the bridge. And so they moved. Through hedgerows, down narrow Dutch streets, past civilians peeking through their curtains, hopeful, afraid, and unsure of what was happening. German resistance grew stronger the closer they got to the city. Machine gun nests opened up from hidden positions. Snipers fired from rooftops. Roadblocks appeared as if from nowhere. Other British units were delayed, pinned down, and taking heavy losses. But Frost kept going. Speed was his only weapon. Momentum was his only armor. And as the sun began to drop lower, the city finally opened up before them, and, somewhere beyond its rooftops, the great steel bridge waited. Taking a bridge is an act of movement. Holding it is an act of endurance. As darkness fell, Frost's battalion was the only Allied unit to reach the bridge. They immediately fortified the buildings overlooking the northern approach. They broke holes through interior walls to create firing lanes. They positioned PIA anti-tank launchers in upper floors. They laid mines in the streets and at intersections. They were preparing for the waves of attack they knew were coming. What they didn't know was who they'd be fighting. Allied intelligence had made a catastrophic error. It had completely missed the fact that 2 elite German SS Panzer divisions, the 9th and 10th, were resting and refitting right near Arnhem. This bridge wasn't lightly defended. It was about to become the epicenter of a storm. The first night, German armored cars probed the bridge, then infantry, then half-tracks. Frost ordered his men to hold their fire until the enemy was dangerously closed. Then they unleashed chaos. Vehicles burned on the ramp. An armored half-track exploded and blocked the road, creating a fiery barricade. The bridge became a funnel of smoke, shrapnel, and screams. As night fell, the fight transformed into the nightmare of urban warfare. It's a different world. Shadows that move on their own. Footsteps you can hear but can't locate. Flashes of gunfire that blind you, followed by a silence that feels like a physical threat. The Germans kept coming. Throughout it all, Frost walked calmly through the positions, checking on his wounded men, reinforcing thin lines, speaking softly so his own steadiness could overpower their fear. Leaders don't always inspire with grand speeches. Sometimes, they inspire simply by refusing to break. On day 2, the German attacks intensified. Mortars rained down, shaking entire buildings to their foundations. Snipers hunted for any movement in the windows. Infantry squads tried to infiltrate the alleyways, fighting room to room. When one house became too damaged, the British paratroopers simply smashed through the interior walls into the next one, turning a row of homes into a single, interconnected fortress. Down in the basements, terrified Dutch civilians hid. The British shared what little food and water they had with them. War had moved into their living rooms. Frost's men held every street, every building, like it was the last one on Earth. By day 3, the tanks arrived. You hear tanks long before you see them. It's a slow, crushing rumble, a sound that feels like physical weight pressing down on you. The British had almost nothing that could stop heavy armor, only their PIAT launchers, which were awkward, short-ranged, and brutally difficult to use effectively. Still, they fired. A tank burned, then another. But the tanks just kept coming. Supported by infantry, they used the buildings as cover, firing heavy shells into the upper floors, methodically crushing the British perimeter. Frost radioed for support. The reply was weak, scrambled, and hopeless. The other British units were still pinned down miles away. The supply lines were cut. The main Allied armored column, meant to relieve them, was delayed on a single, congested road far to the south. Relief was not coming, and deep down, Frost knew it. By day 4, their position had become a ruin. The ammunition was almost gone. Water was scarce. Medical supplies were nearly non-existent. Wounded men lay in stairwells and kitchens, some still firing their rifles from windows with bandaged arms. Frost himself was hit by shrapnel from a mortar shell. He refused to be evacuated. He lay on a stretcher, blood pooling under him, still issuing orders with a voice that remained impossibly steady. German loudspeakers blared, offering terms of surrender. Frost and his men ignored them. They kept fighting, not because they thought victory was possible. It wasn't. They fought because holding the bridge was their mission, and they were airborne soldiers, and airborne soldiers hold their ground. They hold, even when logic has collapsed, even when hope is gone. Eventually, it had to end. The Germans attacked from multiple sides at once with overwhelming force, tanks, flamethrowers, and grenades. The last buildings crumbled and burned. When the final PIAT rounds were gone, when the last rifle magazines were empty, when the wounded outnumbered those who could still fight, the position finally broke. Frost's remaining men were captured or killed, but they had held the northern ramp of the Arnhem Bridge for 4 days. 4 days longer than any military planner had believed possible. For days that stalled to elite German panzer divisions. For days that forced the enemy to bleed for every single meter of ground. For days that remained carved into military history. Operation Market Garden failed. The war would drag on through another brutal winter. But Frost's stand at the bridge became something else entirely. It became a measure of human endurance, a proof of what discipline and leadership look like in the face of total collapse. A reminder that overwhelming numbers don't always win quickly. Frost didn't win the battle for the bridge, but he won something larger. He showed the world what it looks like when ordinary men are faced with an impossible moment and decide not to move. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as incredible as we did, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories of courage and history. We'll see you in the next one.